Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all ages. Welcome back to the CxG podcast. This is episode 2. I am Games of War, Josh, and I'm joined with my partner in crime, as always, Mr. Joe, aka Corn Muffin. How are you doing this evening, fine sir?
All right, how you doing, Josh?
I'm doing good. It's my birthday, so, couldn't picture a finer time than sitting here on this nice evening talking to a good friend like you. The outside is snowing like crazy. We're in the midst of getting a 10-inch snowstorm. It's freezing. I'm here bundled up. Got my Snuggie. I'm feeling good.
You have a Snuggie?
I do. My freaking wife's dad gets me crazy presents, dude, and one of them was a Snuggie.
Well, at least you're making use of it.
Yeah, it's pretty uncomfortable to be honest. It's always falling off my shoulders. It's kind of a pain in the ass.
It's not so snug.
No, it's not so snug. It is not so snug. Now, with it being February, one of the coldest months, what is the weather like there for you? Do you get snow? Do you get vicious winters?
It's not so bad in Tokyo. The weather is, for me, I'd think of this winter as mild. Like, it's rarely below freezing. It only snows maybe once or twice a year. It's not that bad.
Yeah, I've come to appreciate these winters. I'm a big fan of living here in Michigan because of the fact that we get such a variety of weather. We've got the hot summers, we've got the crisp, beautiful falls with the changing leaves, and then we've got the winters, which I love snow. I don't mind cold because it's not really here long enough for me to get so sick of it to where I'm like, oh God, I gotta get the hell out of here. I like the constant rotation and changing of seasons.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm originally from Connecticut, so it's pretty much the same thing. We've got the harsh winter and the super hot summer. So, I can appreciate snow. It's ultra rare here, so when we get it, it's really nice.
Good deal, man. I mean, I would not mind living somewhere where it didn't get as bad as it does here, but I'm not one to complain. And to be honest with you, the weather outside is a perfect example of an excellent game that I got in the mail yesterday, and I've been playing. Not too far into it, but that game is Dead Space 3.
It's a good atmosphere outside for your gaming inside.
It is definitely. There's nothing better than looking out the window, seeing a frozen, barren wasteland, freezing out there. I'm inside, nice and warm, wrapped up in a blanket, lights off, surround sound on, playing a great game like that. And, you've definitely got to try out the Dead Space series. I know that you would like it immensely. Just knowing what kind of games you like and atmospheric, scary titles like that, it's right up your alley.
Well, I'm like a big fan of horror in general. So, I like horror movies, horror games, horror novels, horror anything. So, I'd probably enjoy Dead Space once I eventually get a copy of it.
What's your excuse, man? What's kept you from wanting to jump into the series?
It's never released in Japan.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah, so there's no Dead Space copies. They're kind of hard to come by, and when you do find them, they're really expensive.
Oh, okay. Well, you know what? I'm gonna have to get you a copy of the first one and send it your way for sure. No, I know. Does it bother you having the greatest hits?
No, I don't care about that.
Okay, what system would you prefer?
Anything I can play it on. It doesn't really matter to me.
All right.
If it's region locked, obviously I wouldn't want the Xbox One if it's region locked, but
All right. Yeah, I'll track you down a copy, man, for sure. I did not know that never released in Japan.
yeah, they never released the Dead Space, the first one in Japan. I don't know about the second one, but I don't think I've seen that one either.
Yeah, the third one is really shaping up to be quite the masterpiece. Like I said, I haven't played too much in, but sometimes when you play a game, you just know from 3-4 hours that it's going to be just a roller coaster ride. And the first one, taking place on the USG Ishimura, you've got your dimly lit corridors, your jump scares, your darkness, and a lot of it looked the same, but it did a very good job of changing up the locations. There's only so much you can do when you're on a single ship. You know what I mean? You can't do anything super crazy. But they did a good job of adding a nice variety to the environments. And the second one takes place at the Sprawl, which is kind of like a outer space station, giant. It's huge, and that one really got creative with some of the environments, all while fitting the same kind of dark theme, definitely science fiction. And this third one looks to have, probably the best variety in the series I've seen yet. You start off actually in like an Isaac's apartment, and you see like you're in the city. You see what kind of vision they have for like a futuristic world where interplanetary travel is possible, and it's just really cool. And I've seen some pieces on the Tau Voltanis, I believe it's called, where it's like this frozen wasteland planet. And already the variety I can see just going to be amazing. The visuals, the graphics really look good. I played the demo and I was kind of like, oh man, this doesn't look that good. But this final version, they've really cleaned it up since I don't know when that demo was finished or whatever. But this third game looks amazing, and I'm gonna probably end up beating it over the weekend. Yeah, I know that once I start playing it, I'm not gonna be able to put it down, and probably probably finish the game this weekend for sure. So next episode, I'll be able to really tell you how I feel about it. But so far, I think they've got a winner on their hands for sure.
So how long is a Dead Space game normally?
I believe I finished the second one, and I think it was like 15 hours. 15 hours, yeah, between 10 and 20 hours, depending on how thorough you want to be. And the new game plus, there's a lot of stuff you can use your fully whatever you have you for weapons but this third one, I can already tell with the weapon crafting is just going to be pretty pretty heavy, like replay value focused. I mean, you're going to be able to create some awesome different weapons, and the combinations really seem like limitless. There's going to be so much scavenging and finding parts and constructing these weapons, and that's one of the main things in Dead Space is that you might think to yourself, oh geez, weapon crafting, it's been done a million times, it's not really, you know putting together guns, yeah, but the focus of Dead Space obviously is shooting these necromorphs, and what makes it so much fun is that these guns have some serious impact. These shots do definite damage. You've got to blow off arms, blow off legs to keep these necromorphs from coming at you. So when you construct a gun that's totally badass and you see the damage it's doing, you have like a sense of accomplishment. Like, yeah, I built that son of a bitch. Look at this thing. It's awesome, man. That weapon crafting is definitely going to open up a whole new world to the Dead Space formula, and I'm excited to really get in depth with it and see what it's got to offer.
So do you feel it's more action oriented, or has it kind of maintained the same kind of horror levels that you had from the previous ones?
I think it's definitely, like, I've noticed a few like big set pieces, but it's done a pretty good job of not turning into like a kind of like a horror action. It's treading a very light ground, I will say that, but I think they've kept the overall tone and just kind of like desolate atmosphere. Now, I have tried a little bit of the co-op. I played a little bit of that, and to be honest with you, that was really easy. Like, I'm gonna have to play that on hard with a buddy of mine, because Dead Space 2 did not mess around. That was like a very difficult game. You had to really manage your ammo and your med packs, and for the first few hours of this co-op playing on normal, there was like just ample med packs and plenty of ammo, and I don't know like what. I'm gonna definitely have to play it on hard because it wasn't offering much of a challenge. I'm not really too sure how much into the co-op aspect I'll be. From what I've read, there's like a separate campaign, like different, basically the same campaign but with different scenarios in the co-op. So they're definitely trying to implement that. And a lot of people say, "Oh, survival horror, it's going to ruin the field because Silent Hill survival horror is supposed to be, or a horror game. You're alone, that feeling of dread, isolation. The co-op's going to ruin that." But I'm keeping an open mind. Um, if the developer felt that passionately about it, then there's got to be something good to it. There's got to be some merit to it. So, next week I'll be able to give you a much more in-depth opinion and some comments on that aspect of the game. But so far, fans of Dead Space, you definitely have no excuse not to jump into the third one. It's a great experience.
Sounds pretty good. Sounds good so far. I mean, I think like depending on what kind of game you want to play, type of horror game, I mean, it doesn't. I don't think co-op will ruin it. Like it might ruin the loneliness, but if that's not what you're going for, it doesn't really change the overall tone.
Yeah. I mean, there was a couple times I jumped, even though I was with, a buddy in my headset, talking away. A certain event happened. I was like, whoa, it's still, so I mean, it still had me immersed to the point where I jumped a little bit, because I wasn't expecting what was happening. And those graphics in that game are just really amazing. That desolate winter frozen planet, and you see like a city in the background and some abandoned. It's quite a sight to behold. I did pick up I think I mentioned last week that I ordered the Dev Team Edition, and I'm really mixed on that. You know, when you have a title called Dev Team Edition, that means like this dev team put together the ultimate package that they thought fans would want. And while I agree that the marker, sure it's a rock, but it represents what Dead Space is at its core. So I'm really happy to have that nice little 8-inch marker statue. That's cool. Would I have preferred an Isaac statue, maybe blowing off a necromorph's head or standing on top of his corpse? Yeah, I probably would have. But the marker's cool. But other than that, man, I'm like aluminum data pad. What am I going to do with that? I'm going to open up, flip it through, look at some artwork.
It's an art book, but it's aluminum.
Yeah, it's like aluminum, and it's those binders from like school that have like the three metal rings, and you can like pull them apart. And
Oh, okay.
it's like that, and it's got these pages in it with almost like a clear coat of plastic, and you can pull it back. It's cool, but it's not really something that I'd think, oh God, I've got to have this. And there's a med pack water bottle, which is basically just what it is, a water bottle. I could have lived without that. There's some really kind of awful posters, if I'm being honest. I mean, the posters are nothing that I'd want to hang up on my wall. There's a little like notepad with a few jottings down of a character in the game, and overall for $160 with the game included, if it wasn't numbered and limited, and me being a huge Dead Space fan, I could have passed on that very easily.
It's just so disappointing for that, huh?
Yeah, disappointing, man, is a good word to use. I really expected more. But I knew what I was getting myself into. I guess I shouldn't say I expected more. But, it is what it is.
Yeah, I don't normally buy collector's editions, so it's the kind of thing where, I don't have room for that kind of stuff. I live in an apartment in Tokyo. It's not exactly the image of like a big apartment. So, you can imagine I don't really have room for special editions, so I don't really buy that many.
And I've got something wrong with me when I see limited edition, only 5,000 made. Something in my brain goes off, whether it's crap or awesome. I have to have it. If it's something that I'm passionate about, which is like Dead Space, I gotta have it.
It's your inner collector nerd
Yeah,
screaming at you.
It is. It's gonna win, So yeah, but Dead Space 3, awesome game. Dev Team Edition, not so much. And I thought about maybe piecing it out and gasp, selling some of it off, but I mean, I saw the med kit water bottle going for $85 on eBay, and I'm not looking to buy stuff just to make money or stuff like that, but when I see $85 for a water bottle, it's kind of like, man. I just really wanted the marker statue. That's all I really wanted. I wanted the marker, but if I go piecing it out, then I'm not going to be able to look back and say, you know what, I have one of 5,000 Dev Team editions made, so I'll probably end up hanging on to it,
Yeah, I would. I think like if I have a collector's edition of some kind, I would feel like either I'd have to sell the whole thing or I'd just keep the whole thing, because just parts of it, I would feel like I have this incomplete thing, and that would grate on me.
Yeah, that's what happened to me too. Because I told myself I'm buying this for the marker, but if I start selling pieces off, it's going to bother me too. So I'm just I should just shut my mouth, you know.
So, all right. Do you want to talk about some other horror games? I've got a good one I want to talk about. It's a classic game here we're talking about. One with fixed camera angles, pre-rendered backgrounds, zombies and creatures. It takes place in a mansion. There's puzzles, limited weapons, ammo. You know what I'm talking about?
I'm stumped. Man, what could it be?
Well, of course, it's the original Alone in the Dark.
Whoa. Curveball.
Curveball. So, Alone in the Dark actually has all of those things, and it came out about probably, 4 years before Resident Evil?
I remember playing Alone in the Dark on the 3DO. That was one of the first games that I got for that console back in, geez, it must have been 94.
Did the original Alone in the Dark come out on the 3DO? I know two did, but did the original one also?
The original one did. I was playing as a man named Edward Carnby, I
Oh
believe.
yeah, Edward Carnby. He's the main character.
Yeah. Now, was it fixed cam? I remember it being like fully like polygons. I remember. Was it? It did have.
Yeah, no, the camera angles were fixed for each room, and only the characters and the monsters, I guess, or ghost pirates or whatever else was in it, were polygons.
I remember being very, very amazed by the graphics at the time. It looked really good.
Yeah, it's weird. On the 3DO version is actually a little bit less. I mean, I played it originally on the PC, so the 3DO version is actually kind of a gimped version, apparently.
Yeah. Looking back on it now, it's pretty rough around the edges looking. You know.
I mean, the original is really rough around the edges looking, but apparently the 3DO version is even less quality looking. I haven't played the 3DO version though.
Yeah, at the time I had never really played anything like that. It was definitely a new style of game for me, and it was pretty creepy. I remember it being, it had the atmosphere thing, definitely going for it.
Yeah, I think I really liked that game a lot. When it came out, I was all over that. I kept playing it over and over, even though it's not that long of a game. I think you can probably beat it in 3 or 4 hours.
I remember getting stuck in a certain part in that game, and I couldn't get. I remember like two statues. I don't know if they were like gargoyles on top of the statues that like did backflips that would shoot fireballs, and I could not get by that part. You gotta forgive me too, my memory. This is going way back, but I remember being stuck at a certain point, and I could not kill these. I can't remember if they were statues or what they were. I remember them being like stone. They were stone enemies, and they just killed me every time.
I don't even remember that part. It's been a long time since I've played Alone in the Dark.
So that is what really did that give birth to the kind of horror genre? Was that one of the first?
It's not. It's not like the first. I don't think it's the first kind of horror type of game. I mean, there's a lot of other ones before that, but it's the first one in that same kind of Resident Evil style that people think of as survival horror.
When did that? Do you know when that came out for the PC? Was that
1992, I believe?
So it took a few years for the 3DO to get the port.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think the 3DO. When did the 3DO come out? Not 92.
No, I think that came out Christmas of 90. I think Christmas of 93. I can't remember. I think it was 93 or 94. One of the two.
Have you played any of the other games in the series?
I played Alone in the Dark on the PS3.
Inferno?
Alone in the Dark Inferno, yeah. And I remember it being like it tried to do some crazy things in terms of physics, I want to say. Like I remember having really sloppy controls, but it had some pretty cool gameplay elements. I didn't play it for very long. I remember not enjoying it all that much. But did you play though? Did you play that?
I did play that one, but not the PS3 one. I played the original one on the Xbox, and it's apparently the PS3 one is improved over the 360 one. The 360 one is pretty bad.
Yeah, that's what I heard too.
I liked, there were some parts of it I liked. I mean, I liked the kind of way you had to, go through the building, and in the beginning, like you had to go through that building and it's cracking apart and stuff, and you have to climb on the outside and you have to do a bunch of things. But the problem I had was that you had to fight everything. Like you couldn't run away was the thing. Like, I think when I think of horror games, like I want to be able to have the option to run out of the room and not have to fight these guys.
Yeah, I remember having some problems with the controls. I do remember struggling a bit trying to get it to do what I wanted it to do, you know?
Yeah, plus the fire thing where you had to burn the enemies at the end to permanently kill them was sometimes really hard to get moving because you usually had to hold something in fire and then move it over toward the enemy, and it was really clumsy. The controls were really bad for that.
Now, did you play um obviously from the very first Alone in the Dark, we kind of jumped to like the latest in the series. Did you play, wasn't there Alone in the Dark like 2 proper?
Oh yeah, there was a Alone in the Dark 2 and 3 also on the PC, and I believe 2 was on the 3DO also. But the thing with those was that Alone in the Dark 2 was made, I think it was made by a different team, and it kind of was more on the goofier side. Like it had more jokes and things in it, and you had this little girl who was the main character for part of it, and it was very different in theme. And the first one had like all these kind of H.P. Lovecraft type of references, whereas the second was more goofy. And then the third one was like a Wild West theme.
Wow, really?
Yeah, it was weird because it was I don't remember if it was actually in the Wild West. I think it was. And it was really different, but it wasn't as goofy as 2, so it had less humor and it was more horror type, but you had like zombie cowboys.
Oh, wow.
And then there was also a kind of reboot for the series on the PlayStation, I believe, on the original PlayStation. I forgot the name of it though. It's Alone in the Dark something, some kind of subtitle on the PlayStation. I just don't remember.
Was there Alone in the Dark New Nightmare?
That's what it is. New Nightmare on the PlayStation.
Okay, I do remember that coming out. But I don't ever remember it being talked about too highly. You know, I don't. Alone in the Dark is kind of. It's a series that never really got. I don't think much critical acclaim. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think the original one was like pretty hyped. I remember back in the day, like it was all over like those PC gaming magazines at the time, which is like the whole reason I bought it because I was so hyped for it. And then like they kind of churned out the sequel really quickly. I think it might have been less than a year or something.
It'd be interesting to go back and try to play those, you know, just to see, because I didn't give the first one much of a chance in the 3DO. I played it and I got stuck and I never really went back to it. So it'd be interesting to go back and try to. I think I might try to pick that up for the 3DO and even the second one and give this series a proper chance. You know, today new perspective on it, and see what I can do. You know.
Yeah, I heard that PlayStation one is pretty good. It's supposed to be a reboot, so your character is Edward Carnby again.
Yeah, definitely. So after Alone in the Dark, what's the next? I mean, I guess we could talk about maybe Resident Evil and Silent Hill briefly, but you know those are pretty well-known series. You know, everybody knows pretty much, you know, Resident Evil in and out. If you're a fan of survival horror or horror games, you know. Same with Silent Hill. Now, out of those two franchises, what's the one that really like spoke to you personally? Which series did you get into, if either?
Man, for the original Resident Evil, the Resident Evil, like the first couple, and Silent Hill. Between those, Silent Hill was like definitely the winner for me. I loved Silent Hill more than anything because the atmosphere of it is so creepy.
Yeah, definitely, dude. And I remember when Resident Evil first came out, that like really changed. It like changed up the game, man. Like a lot of people that I didn't think would be into that really, like everybody loved Resident Evil. You know, everybody. I just remember my circle of friends and other kids in the neighborhood and other kids around. Everybody was talking Resident Evil. You know, it really hit hard, and it was a damn good game. I hadn't really played anything that looked that good, and you know, it was pretty creepy, and the voice acting was it was horrible.
Yeah.
It really surprised me, and I really got into it. I thought it was a brilliant game when I first played it.
Yeah, I really liked the original Resident Evil, and then when Resident Evil 2 came out, I was ultra hyped for that because it was really cool to be in a city instead of just in the single mansion.
Yeah, definitely. That was a big game. Resident Evil 2 was for sure.
That's probably still my favorite Resident Evil game, Resident Evil 2.
Yeah, that's a great game. I remember getting that on launch night. A double disc set for the PlayStation. That was awesome. It was a 2 disc set, wasn't it?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. It had the thick case. I remember that. Those were good times. Now, Silent Hill, do you have a preference on the like? I guess we can go 1 through 4. Did you have a favorite? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, nice. That would definitely add to the atmosphere there. See, for me, my favorite was always the third one. The second one was great, and the puzzles, like some of those puzzles got really obscure. I remember that, like just really scratching my head, thinking, "What the hell do I have to do to solve this?" You know what I mean? Like that one, I remember just offhand, you had to shove like the 6 pack of pop down the chute, and then that would knock something loose, and you have to go check the garbage chute, and it just off the top of my head, I remember that. And there were some other crazy puzzles too. But the third one, when I played that on the PlayStation 2, the visuals and the graphics, it just looked amazing, man.
Yeah, I really liked Silent Hill 3. I really liked the creepy kind of theme park setting for that. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was awesome. Really good atmosphere in that one. And the music, the music is such a powerful part of Silent Hill as well. Really adding just that kind of droning, just random music. It was awesome. Silent Hill always definitely was different than Resident Evil. It had a definitely just a different tone and just a different feel. And I thought that the Silent Hill games were more of, to me, they were just more creepy and uneasy, feeling than playing Resident Evil.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It tapped a different nerve for me. Now, did you get into the Fatal Frame games?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of those actually. I recently just got the Fatal Frame at 1 and 2 on the Xbox.
Oh, okay, nice. Those are pretty sought after.
Yeah, I got those recently, but I've played them a long time ago on the actually only on the PlayStation. So I figured I wanted to play the Xbox versions because I heard they were expanded.
Okay, yeah. The director's cut, I believe, the second one, and then the first one. What's different about the first one on the Xbox? Did they add something to it, or
I am not sure.
I remember reading something. They did something to add to it, but I'm not quite sure. But did you play? What did you think of the third one? Did you play I think the Tormented? I believe. Did you play that one?
That's I haven't played that one.
Okay. Now, didn't they continue the Fatal Frame in Japan only, like on the Wii or something? Wasn't that?
Yeah, there's a Fatal Frame 4. It was actually made by a grasshopper manufacturer, the Suda 51 studio.
Oh no shit. Now, did you play that one?
I haven't played that one either.
I definitely wish that one. I wish we would have got that one. That's one game I was really upset to know that we weren't going to get that. And didn't Nintendo like purchase the Fatal Frame series?
Yes, I believe actually that Nintendo purchased the series and contracted Grasshopper manufacturer to make it, and then they never released it outside of Japan. I guess there's a fan translation, like a fan patch you can use to play the game on the Wii with the patch in English.
Yeah, it doesn't really make any sense to me, man. I mean, I don't understand why they wouldn't bring it out. I guess like maybe they didn't sell as well as, or they didn't think it would sell well. Doesn't really make any sense to me, man.
It's strange.
So I guess we can agree that those are like kind of like the I guess we could say the big three of the survival horror genre, wouldn't you say? The Silent Hill, Resident Evil, and Fatal Frame.
Yeah, that's pretty much what you'd think of when you think of the kind of major series.
So what would you say? Would you say Silent Hill is your favorite out of the three?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I really liked Fatal Frame. I thought those were really scary because they kind of dealt with like ghosts. You know what I mean? The camera combat is where I think it's really cool, but I don't want to say it got old, but it felt like it was missing something from I don't know, not being able to attack with a weapon and kind of I don't it was still really cool. Just I guess just different, you know.
Yeah, it's not the same kind of visceral attack, I guess.
Still great, great scary games though. I mean, definitely if you're a horror fan, those three series aren't going to do you wrong. That's for sure.
Yeah, so well, I guess like since when Resident Evil came out, there was the PlayStation 1 era, I guess play 32-bit era was pretty solid for horror games. You know, after Resident Evil, there was a ton of games that came out. You know, Resident Evil like clones, you would say, but there were also other games that were horror related that stood out. Um I could think on the PlayStation, you have the Clock Tower series.
Yeah, and I did play those, and I really enjoyed those games. That was like awesome. I remember the early one that I played being kind of like a point and click, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a point and click. The first one is a point and click.
Okay, yeah, I remember playing that and just running away from this dude with scissors, and it was like it was creepy and it was tense, you know. And those chase scenes where he'd chase you was just like, oh my God, you know, it was really cool. Did you get into those games?
Yeah, I've played. I haven't played three, but I've played one and two, and there's a side story one.
Okay, I did play three, and if I remember, if memory serves me correctly, that was PlayStation 2, and that had some like really grisly murder scenes, like stuff that I'm surprised that would be just a mature rating because like we're talking like a serial killer was from what if my memory serves me correct, just brutal murders, man, grisly. It was a pretty cool game. It wasn't point and click. I mean, you could actually I think it was a 3D. I can't remember if it was fixed angles or not. It's been so long since I played it, but I remember it being, pretty much the same mechanic as running and hiding from the scissor man.
So after that, the series kind of became Haunting Ground.
Yeah, and that's another one that I really enjoyed. Like, I remember getting pretty bad reviews because I was really excited for it, and I started reading some reviews around the time it came out, and a couple of magazines or publications really dogged Haunting Ground. They gave it really bad reviews, and I freaking loved that game. It was amazing for the time because there was no loading between the rooms. You'd walk through the doorway and you'd just be in the other room right away. So that really helped with me with the immersion factor. You know, no load screens. You had that dog with you. You still the same mechanic. You could like run away and you could hide under beds and you could hide in closets and like peek out and you could see him through the crack of the closet or look up and see his feet from underneath the bed. And that was just really tense game there. Did you play the Hunting Ground?
Oh yeah, that one. It's actually called Demento in Japan.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, I do. I remember seeing that the name change. That was a great game.
So what else on the PlayStation 1? Uh, have you ever played Dark Messiah?
No, I've never played it.
It was made by Atlas, and it's kind of a horror game, but it's like it's the PlayStation 1 version of how Silent Hill Shattered Memories is, where you can't fight, you have to only run away.
Oh, okay.
So it's except it's first person, it's not third person. So you like run away from monsters. There's like one monster in the game that's like chasing you throughout, but you have to solve puzzles, and then the monster will show up and you'll run away, and it's pretty interesting considering the time of it all. It's different kind of horror game than your standard like Resident Evil kind of clone.
I'll have to look into that, man, because I remember hearing about it. I remember seeing it, but I never did play it. I'll have to check it out.
Anything else on the in the PlayStation era? I mean, there was a couple of games like Darkseid that got ported to the PlayStation and the Sega Saturn, but those were normal. Those were older like PC games.
Yeah, I never played those. I when the PlayStation 2 and Xbox, obviously the moving on to that generation was a really good time for survival horror as well. The GameCube really got a big boost when Capcom like pledged that the Resident Evil line would be exclusive on the GameCube. They were going to do a remake of the first one, followed by a continuation of the series, which was 4 at the time, and they were going to do a prequel, all exclusive to the GameCube. And I remember that original remake of Resident Evil 1, like still to this day, it really stands up as being a graphical powerhouse. It's really, I think it really made Resident Evil. That's probably the definitive version of Resident Evil, if in my opinion. What a great game, and what a good job that Capcom did of that remake.
Yeah, I remember when the GameCube was out, and then Capcom announced that they were going to do all those exclusives for the GameCube. I was really happy I had a GameCube at that time, but like, those were like some of the best games on the GameCube.
Yeah, definitely. And I remember what was it? Resident Evil Zero
Yeah,
introduced like a kind of buddy mechanic, wasn't it? Where you had what was his name? I think it was Rebecca Chambers, and that guy's name was Billy, I think. He was like an escaped prison guy, and he ended up being your partner, and you could switch off between the two characters to solve puzzles and such. And I remember it being kind of clunky, but visual style and the very much in the same vein as the remake. So it looked amazing. The fixed angles. I remember Resident Evil Zero being a really good game, and that never did get ported anywhere else, did it?
there is a Wii version in Japan. I don't know if it's released outside of Japan, but there is a Wii version somewhere.
I think it did come out in the U.S. too, in the Wii. It could be. I think it did.
But before we even talk about the GameCube, we should talk about the Dreamcast, because the Dreamcast had a lot of good horror stuff.
It did. One that sticks out to me, other than Resident Evil Code Veronica, which was amazing for the time. Was that the first Resident Evil that was in full 3D?
I believe so.
I believe so too, and that was an amazing game for the time. I remember being glued to my Dreamcast for a good 10 to 12 hours with that game. I thought it was amazing for the time. But a lesser known one, I did play. I think we passed over D.
Oh, yeah, we did.
Did you play a lot of D?
Yeah, I played D on the 3DO.
And what did you think of that?
It was good. It's in retrospect, it's kind of clunky and hard. Hard, I want to say, like hard in the way that like you're gonna die a lot of times because you have to kind of remember a lot of stuff.
Now that we bring this up, how could I pass up Enemy Zero?
Oh, Enemy Zero.
Did you play that on the Saturn?
Yes.
Oh, that was really like difficult, man.
The enemies were invisible. That was the
Yeah.
that was the thing that was like such a mess.
It was. That's one of my favorite games on something about it. The atmosphere, once again, the voice acting, like damn near impossible to finish the game, but it had some great atmosphere, and I thought it was pretty scary myself. I thought it was a great game.
Yeah, that whole series was good. D and Enemy Zero and D2.
Yeah, D2 on the Dreamcast was. I finished that game, and I haven't played it since probably 2001. But I remember that switching it up and being like a third person game with some pretty crazy controls. I remember it having a couple of different control schemes. Like I remember riding a snowmobile. I remember a strong like wintry presence with like some creatures, and you play as Laura once again. And I remember thinking that game was really like weird and crazy, but in a good way. It definitely kept me finished. I think that was like a 4-disc game, if I remember correctly, or at least a 2-disc game.
Yeah, it was definitely multi-discs. I don't remember how many though.
Yeah, I enjoyed D2 as a matter. I did. I thought it was a pretty good game.
Yeah, D2 was another good one. The Dreamcast had a bunch of stuff though. It had stuff like Blue Stinger, which is kind of like a Resident Evil clone.
Yeah, it is.
But it had other stuff like You remember Ill Bleed?
I do remember Ill Bleed. That was like kind of like a fun house, like traps and stuff.
Yeah, it was like you were hunting for your friends in the kind of most dangerous haunted house in the world or something, where nobody has survived or whatever.
And man, just talking about this, how could I forget about Tecmo's Deception?
I don't think I've ever played that.
Oh man, I don't know if I guess I would consider that a horror game. It's basically, I remember, this is another one I haven't played since back in the day, but I remember you being in a mansion and you have to set up these traps to keep these intruders from. I just remember setting up really gruesome traps and it being a lot of fun, like luring these people into these traps and watching them get offed in spectacular fashion. I remember that being really, really cool. I remember they had a sequel on the PS2 called Trapped, and it changed up some things. I believe that the Deception series was in first person, and it's been so long since I played it, but I remember it being really unique, having a really inventive and intuitive trap system. And I remember the Trapped on the PS2. I was really hyped for that, and I think it became a third person game, and still had the trapping mechanic, but I'd have to go back and play it. But definitely the Tecmo's Deception series was awesome, very unique for the time.
Another good one that I only played a couple of years back, but it's a game called Desperia on the Dreamcast. It's a horror RPG. It's weird in the sense that it's made by Atlas, and it's kind of a near future horror type RPG where you have this ability to jump into people's heads. So like they'll be telling you a story and you can like jump into their head and determine if they're telling the truth or lying to you or what their intentions are.
Well, that sounds awesome.
And you can also jump into objects and other like animals and things to get different like the animals will be able to tell you what they saw. You'll be able to see from inside their heads, or you'll be able to go into objects and see what touched them or what came in contact with them.
You know, that reminds me a lot of a game on the GameCube called Geist. Did you ever play that?
No.
I think it was like a first person, kind of like horror themed. I think it was like billed as like a horror game. You could possess people and like take over their bodies and make them do stuff, and it was pretty cool. It was Geist. I remember that being pretty cool. But going back to the Dreamcast, did you play a game called Carrier?
I've seen that, but I don't think I've ever played it.
That was like a pretty direct Resident Evil ripoff, but I remember it being like a sci-fi twist to it. I remember it being like total tank-like controls and everything, and the fixed camera angles. That was a pretty good horror game on the Dreamcast. I still own that one. I'll have to play that sometime. It's been a while. But yeah, the Dreamcast definitely had some great horror games for sure.
But after that, I mean, the PlayStation 2 and the Dreamcast, not the Dreamcast, but the PlayStation 2 and the Xbox and the GameCube had a ton of horror stuff.
Oh, ton of games. You know, some of the stuff that I really liked, it's not necessarily survival horror. It's definitely got a horror theme. Was the Hunter the Reckoning series?
Oh yeah, isn't that based on the White Wolf series?
Yes, it is. And those are like really fun, like co-op games, man. You know, the four player on the Xbox, and all of it's like the occult and supernatural themed, and basically hack and slash games. You know, where you team up with a friend and disembowel these guys, and you've got all kinds of cool weapons and guns, and you're fighting zombies and vampires and all kinds of cool shit. All great horror theme to those games.
Probably the PlayStation 2 probably has the most amount of horror games that I can think of. It's got. Have you ever played the Siren games?
Yeah, I have, and I think I actually have one on the PS3. Was it a remake of?
Yeah, new translation. It's
Yeah,
called, I
those
think.
games. That's another one of those ones where you kind of like went and did like the site jacking or whatever.
Yeah, you had to jump into the site of other characters so you could see where they could see and if they could see you or whatever, so you could try to sneak by them.
Yeah, that kind of like Fatal Frame had like a real strong Japanese kind of horror feel to it, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean that was a Japanese game.
Okay, those were I enjoyed the Siren game on the PS2. That was really nice.
Did Siren 2 ever get released over in the US?
I don't think it did. I don't think the first one did well. Now, on the PlayStation 2 and also on Xbox, did you ever play a game? Now, this game I was like super hyped for because it was a horror game set like on a ship, like out at sea. And like for some reason I don't know what it is, but I'm like a sucker for like a good horror game like on like a ship, and there's water, and it's out in the middle of nowhere, and it's dark, and the waves are crashing against the boat, and it's Cold Fear. Did you ever play that game?
I've never played that.
Have you heard of it?
I've heard of it.
That was a really good game. Like we're talking the boat, like as the weather would get worsen, like the waves would make the ship rock back and forth. So you had to like steady yourself as you're shooting, or you'd like miss because the boat, it took into account the wave physics and getting like motion sickness and a pretty straight up Resident Evil kind of like theme to it, except on a ship and there's like zombies. And the one thing that hurt that game that I do remember very strongly was there was no map, so there was no like kind of way to see where you had been and backtracking. So it was like a giant cruise ship, and you have no map, so you constantly getting lost and constantly having to backtrack, but you're not sure where the hell you're going. That game really suffered for not having a map to make navigation a little more easy. But other than that, it was scary. It had really nice graphics for the time, and it had a really cool concept of being out in the ocean. It was a really cool game. I was really hyped up for that one, and I think it was a pretty good horror game for sure. Cold Fear. It's dirt cheap, man. If you can find a copy, it's definitely worth looking into.
That one sounds pretty good. Have you ever played Rule of Rose?
I own that game. I picked it up at a GameStop probably about a year or two ago. That's from Atlas, right? With the children or whatever.
Yeah.
Tell me how that one. I haven't had a chance to get into it.
It's the kind of thing where it's the kind of game that would probably has themes that might make people uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's what.
Uh, there's a lot of like sexualization of children themes in the game. It's like really like, I can't believe that I'm playing this kind of situations.
Man, I remember another one being released too. It was another horror game that had kind of like an off theme like that. I'm trying to blank for some reason. Huh. Maybe I'll remember it as the conversation flows. Did you ever play the Suffering games?
No.
Like there was the Suffering and the Suffering Ties That Bind. Those were really good games because they were horror games, but they were like horror action games. And the first one took place in like a prison, like a penitentiary, and that had like creature designs by like the Stan Winston Studios, and they were creatures based off of forms of death. Like so, you had a creature based around like a lethal injection, where he would like walk on syringes and shit, and like have syringes for hands, and there was like an electrocution monster where he just all based on forms of like capital punishment.
Hmm.
It was just really well done, the creature designs. There was one that had like he had blades for feet, and they could like walk on the floor, and they could jump up onto the ceiling and like scurry around on the ceiling, and really creepy, good sound design, and you could play that in third or first person. And it was those are really cool games too, man. The Suffering, great games. I believe they were done by Midway. Midway, they were making some good games back that generation. The Suffering and Psyops, great games.
So, have you ever played Michigan?
No, I've heard of that though.
It's kind of a weird horror game in the sense that you're the cameraman, and you can't actually interact. You can only like point the camera at things and suggest that your anchor of the news show you're shooting will do things. So you can like aim the camera at something and focus on it, and like the anchor will take notice of it. I don't think so. I think it came out in Europe and Japan only.
Yeah, that's crazy. Cause living in Michigan, that would be a great game to play, man.
It's it's actually a little crazy because it's also another one of those like Suda 51 games.
Oh,
In that it's it's wacky, and lots of weird stuff happens. So like, for example, the first time I played it, I'm in a mansion, and there's a monster that's suddenly in the mansion, and the you can kind of aim at things to get better points. So like if you see something like horribly gruesome and you videotape it, you get points for like gruesome points or whatever. And if you see like someone with their clothes torn off or something, you'll get like sexy points or something.
Okay, Michigan Report from Hell.
Yeah.
Nice, man. Yeah, I see it came out in Japan, Europe, and Australia.
But it's funny because like you're the host of the show can die, but every time you'll have a new host in the next mission where a new host will be announced for the show, and you'll just continue on.
Oh man, I need to see if I can get a copy of this. It sounds like an interesting game for sure. Did you ever play? Now these were like direct rip-offs of Resident Evil, the Obscure series.
Oh yeah, on the Xbox.
Those are I really enjoyed those games. It kind of took like did you ever see the movie The Faculty?
Yes.
It kind of reminded me of that because the games are set in high school and you play as I think a cast of like five pretty much stereotypical like you got the jock, the bad boy, the nerd, the cheerleader girl, and you can I believe it's co-op. I think it's co-op like two player and you can switch off characters and some characters are like the bad kid is good at like lock picking and the jock is the strongest and it had a pretty cool plot based on like the principal and some of the staff of the school was like conducting some strange experiments in the basement and that game had some really cool lighting and good controls and music and those were budget games they came out and they were $20 and definitely worth it. I really enjoyed the Obscure games. There's Obscure and Obscure the Aftermath.
Yeah. Was there the Aftermath was part two?
Yeah, that was part two. I believe that came out on the PSP and I believe the Wii. I think the first Obscure was only PS2 and Xbox. Now, did you play Area 51 on the PS2 or Xbox?
I don't think so. The only Area 51 I've played is that light gun game.
Okay. Yeah, this one's a first-person shooter done by Midway, and I think Marilyn Manson does the voice for the character, like the lead character in the game, or one of the. It's not necessarily like a horror game. It's obviously like aliens and stuff, but there is a lot of scary parts in that game, and it was really well done. That was like one of the more enjoyable first-person shooters with a horror theme to it that I remember really enjoying that on the PS2 and Xbox. Great game.
And recently you sent me that Call of Cthulhu game for the Xbox, Dark Corners of the Earth. It's called. I originally actually played that on the PC, and I really wanted to play an Xbox version because it's kind of clunky to play with a mouse, and I only have a touchpad, so it's kind of like playing it on my laptop with a touchpad is not the easiest way to play it.
Yeah, that game, I definitely want to get a copy of that game for myself because that game looks awesome.
It's awesome because like it's a first person shooter kind of, but there's not much shooting and you do a lot more kind of sneaking around in first person than shooting.
Uh-huh.
And you do a lot of running away and moving things in the environment to block enemies from attacking you or to shut off doors so they can't get in, that kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna pick up a copy of that for myself. Before I sent it to you, I was like looking at it like, oh man, this freaking looks this game looks awesome. But we had a trade set in place, and I ended up shipping it out to you. But I definitely have to get a copy of that. There's another game on the Xbox that was really cool. I think it was Xbox. I think it came out on the PC and maybe the PS2. It was called Curse: The Eye of Isis. Did you ever play that game?
No.
It's a survival horror game that is a lot like Resident Evil, like fixed camera angles, but it's like a museum type of game. And like the Eye of Isis, like this Egyptian statue was stolen, and there's like a fog that's overtaken like areas of this museum and killing and transforming like thing. I remember playing as like a museum curator or just like an archaeologist or something, and it's like a survival horror game in this museum, and it's really cool, man. I remember it getting like pretty mixed reviews, but I really enjoyed that game. I still have that for the Xbox. Curse: The Eye of Isis. It's a great survival. There's so many games that came out now that we're talking about it. So many good survival horror games.
Yeah, man. I think when I think about it, at that time, one of the games I played the most was probably Eternal Punishment on the Eternal Darkness, not Eternal Punishment. That's something else. Eternal Darkness on the GameCube.
Yeah, that was a great game. Those insanity effects, I still remember to this day. Those really threw me for a loop, man. Those were I'd never seen anything like that in a game when I played that, and I didn't read up anything on it. So when I was playing the game, and all of a sudden my GameCube like reset to the boot up screen. I'm like, what the shit? I'd been playing for like 4 hours. All my progress was gone. I was like, no, what the hell happened? And all of a sudden, like your character kind of like goes crazy, and you go back into the game. I'm like, oh my god, that was crazy.
Yeah, that was awesome. I remember that happening to me too. I was like, did my game just reset?
You're like walking, and all of a sudden, like your feet start sinking more and more into the floor. You're like, what the hell is going on? That was great game. That's a great game. Every GameCube owner should have Eternal Darkness if you are into horror games.
Yeah, I played through that game 3 times under each of the gods so I could get the different endings with each one.
Oh, nice, dude. That's awesome. No, we've totally bypassed Dino Crisis, man.
Oh yeah, Dino Crisis.
Did you ever get the chance to play those on the PlayStation?
Yeah, I have the first one, and I think I have the third one, but that one's on the Xbox, right?
Yeah, that kind of took the series in a
Dinosaurs in space kind of way.
yeah, and like gameplay wise, they had like that jetpack and stuff. It was like pretty cool, man.
Yeah, that was a good series. I wish they would make more of those.
Yeah, we need to do Dino Crisis, man, for sure.
Onimusha was another one that was like in the same style, I guess. But obviously you're not fighting dinosaurs. You're fighting weird Japanese things, but it's still kind of horror samurai kind of.
Yeah, those are great games too, man. That was like in the PS2 heyday, man, and all those awesome like fixed camera angle games were coming. Did you like the Parasite Eve games?
Oh, I love Parasite Eve.
Yeah, those are great games. Would you consider those like horror games?
Well, they're horror. I wouldn't consider them survival horror, but they're horror.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I love Parasite Eve. I play a Parasite Eve pretty often, actually. I don't play it like every day. I play it, probably go through the game once a year or so.
Okay. Did you like the PSP, the third birthday?
I haven't played.
I don't think you'd be too happy if you did, especially if you're a
Wasn't
fan.
it?
It was an action game, dude. Like I don't know. I'm not the most picky guy in the world, so I did enjoy it, but it didn't have the same heart and soul of the original Parasite Eve games, you know?
Yeah, I like researched it a bit, but I heard that it was just kind of like a third-person shooter, so I just wasn't that excited for it.
Yeah, it definitely did a few things wrong for sure. Great production values though. Storyline was interesting. Um, Now moving on to like the Xbox 360 and PS3. Obviously we still got Resident Evil going and Silent Hill to mixed results. So the one thing I can count on is Dead Space. For this generation, I really enjoyed the Condemned games.
Oh yeah, me too. Though Condemned is like a kind of hobo beating simulator almost.
Yeah, it is too. It, it like that was one of the first games I played on the 360. I remember when I first got my 360 on Christmas of 2006. It was like a year after it had come out. I got Cameo and Condemned, and I just remember being blown away by those graphics. That was like awesome, like the lighting and bumping into stuff and knocking over bottles and hearing like those crazy freaking juiced up hobos like "Urgh," coming at you,
Yeah.
smashing stuff, and yeah, that was awesome. Brutal, like pipe beating and
Yeah, that was just like you always had to grab a pipe and beat up hobos in every stage.
yeah, got a little repetitive, but still a lot of fun. Chasing a serial killer was definitely a cool concept. And then I think we both love Deadly Premonition.
Oh yeah, I love Deadly Premonition.
With the director's cut coming soon for the PS3. And I read an article about a week and a half ago, and they're really like they're fixing the controls, like making it a little less sloppy and adding like a lot more scenes, dude. And well, I think they were adding like a little map, something. I remember they're talking about changing it up quite a bit, but still retaining, what made it the way it is, But they say that definitely the definitive version is going to be the director's cut for the PS3. So I'm looking forward to that for sure.
That should be good. That game was so good.
Yeah, it was, man.
You know what I was thinking about that was that if they made Deadly Premonition, but the people who made Alan Wake just like transplanted the graphics from Alan Wake into Deadly Premonition, like the gameplay style and stuff from Alan Wake into Deadly Premonition, it would have been like the perfect game.
Yeah, it really would have, man. And I enjoyed Alan Wake. I thought it was pretty good, but I wish they would have went with like the original, which I guess is more like Deadly Premonition, like when it first was announced, kind of like an open world survival horror. You know what I mean? Like Alan Wake turned into more of a, I don't know, shine the flashlight, frickin' shoot, which kind of got a little stale. I did like the episodic structure, and the storyline was really cool. It was just the gameplay constantly repeating itself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I really liked Alan Wake though. I actually played through it twice on two different difficulty levels. So I played through on a regular and then I played through on whatever the most difficult one was after that. And then, I did all the DLC too. So the DLC was actually pretty good for that too. You had like some really interesting scenes where you're in Alan Wake's mind. So the scenery is all these like weird poles of spikes and things. It's like all crazy. So it's really interesting.
Yeah, I did enjoy Alan Wake as well. I thought it looked great. The graphics were awesome on the 360. I liked the episodic structure. I just the gameplay got a little stale, the same mechanic over and over again. But I guess that can be said about a lot of games. But overall, I thought it was a really good game, definitely. Now, you don't have a Kinect, do you?
I do.
Oh, do you? Have you had a chance to play Rise of the Nightmare?
Yeah, I have that. I have that.
I like that a lot, man. You know,
Yeah, that game is a lot of fun. I haven't finished it. I only play it every once in a while when I've already moved my couch out of the way so I can use the Kinect.
yeah, it's a pain in the ass playing it. You got to stand up, and I can only do that for so long. But the cheesiness, kind of like capturing the House of the Dead kind of vibe, I really like. I thought, one of my favorite Connect games for sure.
Yeah, that game is a lot of fun.
Definitely. Did you ever get into the Fear series?
No, I'm not really a fan of those.
No, I played the first one. For people saying that was scary, I could not get into the first one. I thought the second one was pretty good. I never played the third one.
Yeah, I played the first one, but I only rented it. I didn't buy it. And I didn't really enjoy it. Like, I rented it for a week or whatever, and then I was just like, not so excited for this.
Yeah, it just was painfully like average. Like the slow down, you could slow down the time or whatever, but I don't know, man. I just for some reason I couldn't really get into the Fear games. But I mean, I just there between the two of us, I think we've covered a pretty good amount of horror games. I'm sure we're forgetting something.
Have you played Shadows of the Damned?
Yes, I have. I have, and I think that game's excellent. I think it's a lot. It's like the natural evolution of Resident Evil 4. You know what I mean? You can like aim and move, and it feels a lot like that. But I think it's an awesome, awesome game.
You had a lot of fun with Shadows of the Damned. I really enjoyed the story, and I enjoyed the characters. And though, like, it's like a 15-hour dick joke, it's still interesting enough to that I wanted to play through it. And I played through that twice also on two different difficulty levels.
Yeah, that was a good game. I liked the whole. Um, it had crazy atmosphere, man. That kind of like underworld type demon. It was great. I thought that was really good.
There's a lot of handheld stuff on the DS too. Have you played Dementium?
Yeah, I have played those, man. I've played both Dementiums and like the Moon game. I thought that they were all really well done for the DS. The second Dementium is actually really. I thought it was a lot better than the first one. Uh, I thought it was a really good game. I'm not too like big into first person shooters on a handheld really, but as far as like setting out what it, wanted to do, I thought it did really well.
Yeah, that one is good. Have you ever heard of Nanashi no Game?
Mm,
It's
no.
it's it was probably Japanese only, but it's this kind of horror game where it's first person for part of it, where you slowly move on the DS and you have to flip the DS like a book.
There's a game called Teresia that kind of reminds me of what you're talking. It's like a horror game. It's really slow moving atmosphere.
Yeah, except it's not that game. But Nanashi no Game actually switches into like an old school 8-bit RPG partway through the game.
Oh wow.
And like it switches between this kind of like real world, like slow moving, like walking through environments, and to this 8-bit RPG. And the concept of the game is like Ring or something, except if you play the game, you have to beat the game within 7 days or you'll die.
Oh wow.
So the game is this 8-bit RPG that's like really demented.
That's cool, man. You know, why don't we have like an RPG or like an open world, like straight up horror game where maybe it's like an RPG where you're playing in like this demon world and it's like a really atmospheric, um, just an epic like RPG that's horror themed, man. We really don't have anything like that, do we?
Not really. There's not anything that's like there's a couple things like, have you ever heard of El Minage?
Uh-uh.
It's a first person dungeon crawler, but there's El Minage Gothic, which is like a horror themed first person dungeon crawler.
Yeah.
That
Huh.
kind of thing is there's that, but I can't really think of any straight up like horror RPGs.
Yeah, man. Like why, man? Like I always thought of making a game where like before like all this Twilight vampire shit went like through the roof. I like when I was in like high school, I always imagined like making an RPG where you're like in a coven of vampires and like you have to go out and like recruit people to your faction of vampires and like while not drawing too much attention from the open world and the humans out there, and making a huge like in-depth RPG like that while trying to like overtake the Lycan, the werewolf, like they're like that's something that hasn't been explored, man, and it would be so freaking awesome whether it be like an RPG set in like horror, like vampire gothic werewolf type of struggle or just a Silent Hill type game where you're like a guy searching for his daughter or something or wherever the case may be, but just a huge epic like adventure, where there's progression and character development all in a creepy atmosphere and making, a combat system where you evolve and it's such an untapped. I mean, we've got 50,000 first-person shooters. We've got 50,000 Hollywood blockbuster action games, but we don't have something like that, and it sucks.
Yeah, the the only thing I can think of that's kind of horror based that's an RPG would be the Dark Souls and Demon Souls series, but it's not like a modern day thing. It's just kind of gothic horror.
Yeah, that's pretty damn close, man. And to be honest, like Legacy of Kain and like Soul Reaver came pretty damn close to what I'm trying to get at, but something taken a little bit more than what those, Demon Souls and Dark Souls are pretty damn close too. Those are for sure.
Man, have you ever played Operation Darkness?
I see that all the time too, and I haven't played it.
It's kind of a third person strategy game.
Is that on the 360, right?
Yeah, it's a 360 exclusive, I think.
Yeah, I remember
And
seeing
it's
that.
and it's actually like Valkyria Chronicles. The game style is like Valkyria Chronicles, but it's based in like World War One, and it's kind of this horror theme. Like there's characters from H.P. Lovecraft novels and stuff, and there's one of the characters is a werewolf, and it's in World War One, so you're fighting not Nazis, but Germans, and it's pretty awesome.
I might have to look into that, man. I think they actually have it at my local Myers, and it's like
It should be dirt cheap. I mean, it wasn't like well acclaimed or anything, but it's the kind of thing where it's like an Xbox 360 version of Valkyria Chronicles, but obviously it doesn't look as good.
yeah, because like my Myers is strange, man. It's got like a random copy of that sitting there, and then it's got like a random copy of like Cross Edge for the PS3, like that strategy RPG. And it's like they must have gotten those in like 2007 or something. And like the shrink wrap is like rotting off of the game. Like it's been sitting there so long, and I've been tempted to pick those up, man, because I remember seeing that Operation Darkness and the other one, and I'm like, man, It's like a fish out of water sitting there with the other like new releases and mainstream games. It's just never sold. So I think I might pick that up now that you mention it.
You should do it because that game is actually kind of interesting in the sense that it's kind of like a Lovecraft type horror game, and it's a strategy game, and it involves. I think it's World War II because I know there's Nazis in it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna pick it up for sure.
I think you have to kill Hitler in a mission. I'm not sure. I don't remember. Yeah.
Oh, sweet, dude. Um, so yeah, but like on the 3DS, I think Resident Evil Revelations, is probably my favorite Resident Evil in quite some time. I think that 3D, like actual 3D, really adds to that game in terms of the atmosphere. That was a great game.
Are you gonna get it on the 360 or PS3?
No, I probably not, man. I mean, sure, it's going to have better graphics and probably upgraded controls because I didn't play it with the Circle Pad Pro, but I think that I don't know if they might have 3D like for the PS3 or whatever, but I think that game it's going to lose something not having that 3. The first thing I did when I got that game is turn. You can go into the options and turn the 3D like on very strong, and I cranked that 3D slider all the way up. And that just really, for me, it made the game. It really added something to the game, playing it like that. It just looked awesome. And I think it would lose something to not be in 3D, but I might, depending on what they add to it. And because it was a really fantastic Resident Evil game. And now, what did you think of the Spirit camera for the 3DS?
I still haven't played it.
No, I finished it, and I think it's really cool, man. I think it sucks that you have to like play it in a well lit room and preferably on a chair that like rotates 360 degrees. But
Hmm.
other than that, lots of cool ideas with the augmented reality in there. It's a short game, um, but I got it on sale. It was at Best Buy for $15, and it was worth it. Definitely.
Yeah, that game got like really bad reviews, I thought.
Yeah, it wasn't too positive. It wasn't. A few places had some positive things to say about it, but I mean, it was basically on rails. Not much to it. It was cool, like flipping through the book and finding certain pages and things that jump out to you. But one game I just wanted to mention real quick too that I forgot on the Saturn was a game called Lunacy. Did you ever play Lunacy? It's by Atlas.
No. No.
It was kind of like the um, like a Mist or that style of game where it's like first person and it's like pre-rendered backgrounds, or like D, you know, with kind of like a horror theme, really creepy atmosphere. You're like a guy with amnesia that's been to the sacred city, and after you've been to the city, like you supposedly die or something. And I haven't played it in a while, but I remember that being really creepy and a really good atmospheric game on the Saturn for sure. Exclusive to the Saturn from Atlas, which is crazy. They don't really make games like that anymore. But yeah, yeah, good stuff, man. I like talking about horror games. It's a great genre.
So, is there anything new horror wise coming up that you're interested in?
Well, I didn't play Resident Evil 6. I played the demo, and it just I don't know, man. Something about that didn't seem right. I'll probably pick it up when it's $20. But shit, what's coming out in terms of horror games? Anything?
Oh, wait. Since you and me and maybe 10 other people also have a move, there is that game coming out, Until Dawn, that's like a teen slasher movie, but you use the move to control through it.
I'll pick it up. I'll pick it up.
It's Yeah, I'll probably get it too. I'm not sure what it's like. It's actually from the description I read, it's kind of like a move version of Obscured to me. That's what it sounds like, except with the slashers instead of like the faculty.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I'll pick it up. And anybody listening to this, go buy a freaking move, man. I think it's so underrated, dude. It's awesome for rail shooters. Sorcery's freaking awesome. So yeah, man. If you like House of the Dead, go buy the move.
Yeah, I have the move and I like the move for what I've used it for. I just, there's not a lot to use it for.
Yeah, that's true. But for me, it's worth it for Dead Space Extraction, House of the Dead Overkill, House of the Dead 3 and 4, Time Crisis, and a few other. I like Sorcery. And there's a game called The Shoot, which is pretty cool. Fight Lights Out, it's pretty cool. Lots of reasons definitely. And I've seen bundles of the Move like on sale recently, where you can get like the Move controller, the camera, and whatever game for like $40 or something, dude. It's definitely worth that. Shit.
Yeah, it's worth that. There's also that new Shinji Mikami game, Zwei.
Huh, never heard of that.
Shinji Mikami, who made Resident Evil, is
Oh yeah, yeah. Where they released that like concept art.
yeah.
Yeah, that definitely. I've definitely got my eye on that.
I haven't heard anything about it recently, but I'm pretty excited for it when it comes out.
Yeah, I'll definitely be picking up the. Even though I own it on 360, I'll definitely get the Deadly Premonition Director's Cut for sure.
And what else is there? I guess Dark Souls 2.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be all over that. And then there's that other thing. Have you heard of The Vanishing of Ethan Carter?
No.
It's made by the guys who made Bulletstorm, and there's only like a 45-second trailer for it now, but apparently it's like you're a character searching for like an abducted boy or something. It looks pretty cool.
Oh, that sounds cool. Yeah, definitely.
They described it as like a kind of weird fantasy horror.
I'll keep my eye on that one for sure. But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to getting into some Dead Space 3, man. You know, even just sitting here talking about all these horror games makes me want to play it right now. You know, definitely looking forward to going through that, and I'll keep my eyes peeled, man. Because the first two are dirt cheap, man. If I can grab them both for you, I'll just pick them both up, man. Send them your way.
Yeah, man. If you see them, pick them up. I think I've heard that they're really cheap, but in Japan they're like $50 each, maybe.
Yeah, I can get them for probably between 10 and $20. I'm not. I'll buy you like a. See, the thing is with Kmart's, like around here, Kmart's, or even Myers. A lot of times they'll get in games, you know, and just they'll never sell from there, so they'll be like on the clearance racks. These Kmart's around here just have tons of games that came out like early on in the generation, still factory sealed. I came across this big Kmart the other day, like a factory sealed copy of Tales of Vesperia. They had like 99 Nights 1 and 2 there. Like all these gems from earlier on in the generation that just never sold and are still sitting on their shelves, you know. So I'll definitely be able to find you a couple Dead Space 1 and Dead Space 2. So what I guess we want to do what have you been playing lately, man?
Man, I haven't been doing that much since last time. I was played a lot of what's it called? Fire Emblem.
Okay, yeah, for the 3DS I just picked that up myself.
So I finished Fire Emblem and I played through it on just like normal difficulty under classic. And I kind of wish I didn't do that because the classic mode is good, but the normal difficulty was too easy.
Okay, I'm playing it on hard, and let me tell you something, man. Like, don't move. If you're like questioning about moving, like, oh man, it might not be a good idea. Like, don't do it because it's brutal, man. You make one wrong move and you're dead, and you know your characters die, they're gone forever. So, like, it's like hard will test your skills for sure.
Yeah, I started a new game on hard, but I was gonna start it on insanity because I thought like the normal difficulty was really easy. Like I had almost no trouble getting through everything without dying.
Yeah, yeah. I wanted to start it on hard because I want that sense of, oh shit, if I make a wrong move, this could be fatal, you know. And I'm enjoying it. I pre-ordered it, so I got like a really nice art book with it, and the art book is real nice, man. Overall that game is awesome. The cutscenes. In-game graphics, the 3D, all looks really good.
Except nobody has feet.
Yeah. What's up with that, man? Like their feet are like in the ground.
Yeah, it looks like they're either in the ground or they're just not modeled at all.
Yeah. Other than that, man, that strange discrepancy. The animated cutscenes are great. The 3D looks great. The environments. It kind of has like a. It almost looks like it has a graphical style similar to like The Last Story to me for some reason. I don't know why I think that, but like the graphical style looks really similar to me.
Yeah, it looks really nice, and I liked the whole character progression thing for going for it. Like you could switch classes as many times as you wanted, and you could marry off your characters and stuff. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to putting some serious time into that.
Yeah, it didn't take that long to beat. It took like 20 hours maybe. Well, I mean, I guess that depends on if you're going to be restarting if you lose characters or whatever. But I didn't really have to do that much, so it was just I kind of blew through it. But I started playing it again because I put it on a higher difficulty because I wanted to play it actually have it be a challenge. But other than that, I started playing. Well, I mean, I attempted to start to play The Witcher 2, and that didn't work. I bought the game from Amazon, and I put it in my Xbox, and it's not region compatible. So I just have like a North American Witcher 2 game that I can't use.
Now that we're talking about like the open world, kind of like RPG, gothic horror, that's pretty much dead on with what that game is. Like super super in depth, but really really cool like storyline and stuff, man. I picked it up a while ago, and I ended up selling it like a retard, man. I really regret like getting rid of it. But yeah, man, if you got a copy just sitting there doing nothing, you can send it my way.
I probably should because no one else is playing it.
I'll send you Dead Space 1 and 2. You send me that. We're all good, man.
Sounds good.
Cool.
So besides that, I tried to start playing that, but so instead I played a bit more DMC, and then I started playing Final Fantasy Tactics on the PSP.
Oh, nice. The War.
And War of the Lions. And I had originally played that on the PS1, so I haven't played it since like PS1 days. And I totally forgot how bad the dialogue is in that game.
Yeah.
It's awful. It's like painful to read bad. And then the battles are so slow paced. And I don't think they're like incredibly slow. It's just coming off of Fire Emblem and going into Final Fantasy Tactics is like a slog because the battles are so slow comparatively.
Yeah, and Fire Emblem you can speed up. You can just hold down the A button. It'll speed right through the battles, which is really nice.
Yeah, if you hit the start button, it'll skip the battles altogether.
Yeah, really really good stuff there for if you're just wanting to fire through without watching the same fight animations over and over again. Speaking of Devil May Cry, just real quick, the sales figures have been released for that, and it's not good.
Yeah, I saw it sold like about 550,000 or something.
Yeah, and for the amount of marketing they put into that, and like Ninja Theory's like outrageous claims. They were like claiming, "Oh, this is the best game. This is better than all of them. It's better than this, better than that," and it's like not even selling close to as well as Devil May Cry 4 did. It's like, God, why reboot? Even though personally, both of us, I freaking love the game. It's sad to see if it doesn't perform up to expectations. I think it deserves it.
Yeah, I think their expectations were lifetime total of about 1 million or so.
Uh-huh.
I think it'll probably meet that. I could see it once it gets cheaper. I'm sure more people will buy it, and it's a really good game, so it deserves to be bought. It got really good reviews and everything,
Yeah.
so I don't see why it wouldn't sell that much.
I hope it does.
So yeah, besides that, I haven't really been playing anything else. So how about you? Dead Space 3 and
Dead Space 3 will take up my weekend. It's going to pain me to like put Ni no Kuni down for a minute because I'm still really, really enjoying that. And then Fire Emblem, just picked that one up on Tuesday. So it's going to be like I have so many games to play at once, man. I really want to play. Dead Space 3 is going to be something I can power through in the weekend for sure. I'm going to get that beat. Probably go back to that and play some more of that with the weapon crafting and such. But one playthrough will be good just to get that done with, experience all it has to offer. Then I'll be going, still playing Ni no Kuni. I'll probably switch off between that and Fire Emblem. But in terms of like actual what I've been playing, just basically Ni no Kuni. And I did pick up Sly Cooper, Thieves in Time, the new Sly game.
have you played it?
Yeah, I played about 2 hours of it the night I brought it home. I brought that home the same night as Fire Emblem and Dead Space 3. So Perhaps, once again, day one-itis. Did I need
Mhm.
Sly Cooper like day one? Probably not. Because by the time I get to, around to playing it, but I mean, okay, the game is $40 brand new, and you get the Vita version for free.
That's pretty good.
So it's like cross save. I mean, come on, that's like you're paying $20 for each version, and I mean, for everybody that bitches about, pricing I mean, Sony's, I believe, doing good things, man. I mean, you can't beat that, dude. A $40 brand new release, and you get two versions. You know what I mean? That's what more can you ask for? Will it drop to 20? Sure, I'm sure it will because I've seen basically zero hype for this game, zero advertising. I didn't even know it came out until like the day I was like, oh shit, Sly Cooper's. It's like, where's the advertising? I haven't seen any for it. So, just like All Stars Battle Royale, absolutely no marketing for that. I don't think it'll. I mean, I'm sure it's got a lot of fans. I'm sure there's a lot of Sly Cooper fans out there that'll pick it up, but they didn't do a very good job of advertising for it. But I did pick that up, so I'll probably be playing that within the next couple of weeks here. But just basically Nino Cooney for right now. That's all I've been playing the past week. And I did manage to, I should say, I finally broke down and I purchased the Wizards Edition. Namco screwed me out of getting mine. So I had to go to eBay and pay a ridiculously inflated price for it. But you know what? I like the game so much. I just want the freaking Wizards Edition. I don't care. You know what I mean? I just want it. So that should be here tomorrow. That's like my birthday present to myself. Hey, whatever.
An expensive birthday present to yourself.
An expensive birthday present to myself. And with Valentine's Day right around the corner, probably wasn't the best idea, but I bust my ass every day at work, man. You think I like doing that? No, I don't. I'm gonna reward myself. That's about it for me. Looking forward to Dead Space. Looking forward to. I think I'm about halfway through Nino Cooney, to be honest with you. I'm about, I think, 20 something hours in, and I'm taking my time doing some side quests and such. So probably about halfway through with that. I haven't really heard like specifically. I'm assuming it's probably maybe 40 hours. So before we wrap it up here, um, this what is it? February 20th. I'm sure you've heard of this big PlayStation reveal. Have you heard
Yes.
why don't we just speculate just real quick on what do you think is going to be revealed on the February 20th?
It's almost definitely PlayStation 4.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what most people are thinking, even though I think it was like a week ago, Sony came out and said, "Hey, we're in no hurry. We're going to wait and let Microsoft go first and see what they have to say." That was the statement that I think one of the guys made. So if this February 20th is in fact I mean, obviously that statement was bullshit. If it, and I hope it is, man. I hope they come out on February 20th with freaking guns blazing, man. I hope we see the PlayStation Orbis or 4 or whatever it's called. I hope we see a final controller. I hope we see like some damn impressive games. Like if Sony wants to get this generation coming, get the ball back in their court for Christ's sake, man. If they want, I mean, they need to come out and impress the hell out of people and keep it at a attractive price point. You know what I mean? Um, but they've let too much go since the PlayStation 2. They came out with a PlayStation 3 at a super high cost, really difficult to develop for. I hope they show us a system that's easy to develop for, powerful, and just get this shit going. I can tell you one thing: if they just come out on February 20th and are like, "Oh, here's our next firmware update," or blah blah blah, I think that's going to make them look like idiots because this is getting pretty hyped up. This February 20th date, people are running wild with predictions and expectations, and I wouldn't mind seeing some PlayStation Vita news. Maybe some killer games that haven't been shown. They've had waiting. Maybe God of War. but definitely hope it's a PS4 announcement.
I think they were saying that they were inviting investors and stuff to the announcement, so I'm pretty sure it's going to be something big. If they don't really have anything big besides the PlayStation 4 coming, right?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. I hope they do it right because Sony's my favorite, man. I'm not gonna lie. They're my favorite. I preferred the Xbox 360 early on in the generation when we were getting stuff like Blue Dragon and Lost Odyssey and Infinite Undiscovery and Tales of Vesperia and Dead Rising and Lost Planet and the first Saints Row and Condemned and Cameo games like that, all exclusive at the time. I really preferred the 360, and I preferred the Xbox last generation. So, but PS3 has really won me over. Sony. I love Uncharted. I love Heavenly Sword. I love the Resistance, the Motorstorm, Journey. Flower, Infamous. All these Sony franchises and exclusives. I just like a lot, and I hope I hope it's something good.
You see, like in my case, I don't really care who is making the console. I just like the games. So like I don't really have a preference over the PS3 and the Xbox. Like normally just use the Xbox because if I'm going to play online, like more people I know have an Xbox.
Yeah.
But for games, like 90% of the games are the same between the systems.
That's true.
And then that 10% I have both systems for. So if there's something I want on the Xbox that's only on the Xbox, great, I'll play that. And if there's something on the PS3, then I'll just get it on the PS3. It's kind of thing where like the thing with all of that is that I really hope that we get another generation like the PS2 generation where there's one clear winner.
Uh-huh.
Like the thing with I don't mind the Xbox 360 and the PS3. I think they're both great systems. But I would rather have one system that just dominates. You know what I mean? Like just one that everybody is making games for in like a solid way. And if they make an exclusive for that system, like it's not hurting them to not make it multi-platform.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
It'll do something. I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's Microsoft or Sony or if it's Nintendo or whatever. But what I'm saying is that the PS2 generation was great because if you had a PS2, there were so many games that were exclusive to the PS2 that were like interesting and new, and smaller companies were making them, and everybody could do it because there wasn't a need to port to all these other systems.
That's very true.
But at the same time, on the Xbox, it had a much less people who owned it. But on the Xbox exclusives, there were like a lot of games that were the same kind of thing. They were interesting and they were new and they were not ported to other systems because the Xbox had different specs, or like they were just trying to, show up in a market that was smaller so they could get a kind of bigger name in a smaller pond, as it were.
Yeah, that's a good point, man. And it's true. Like, the reason I say, when I said I like Sony best, I like their first party studios that they own. They own like I think 12 or 13 first party studios, and I just like all the games that they like God of War, like the Uncharted. Like I like all those exclusives, but I definitely see what you're saying. Like it seems like the last generation it had more games that came out that weren't like most things are multi-platform these days. You know what I mean? It just it's the way it is. And like with the Xbox, like you were saying, you got like all the Sega exclusives, like Jet Set Radio and Panzer Dragoon, and on the PlayStation 2 you had all these kinds of freaking awesome games too, and two distinctly different libraries. You know what I mean? To where nowadays it's just like one big library with a few exclusives peppered here and there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like I just don't understand like the kind of rabid fanboy wars that are going on because 90% of the system is the same. It's not like the time when it was Nintendo versus Sega, because in that time, like the games were like 90% different.
Yeah.
Even if it had the same name, it was a different game.
Yep, that's true. That's true. And only the ones that were like movie tie-ins. You know what I mean? A lot of times those would be the same, or if it was like a cool spot, or if it was like a Batman Returns, or if it was like then and even then it would be different, like you said. But pretty much, yeah, like you said, it was just distinct library on this system, a distinct, totally different library on this system, and you chose according to which tastes were, what you liked. And there was a reason for fanboys and system wars then, because it was two distinct, different, you know, pastures of games, man, as to where now it's basically whether you prefer achievements or trophies, or you like Xbox Live or PSN. You know what I'm saying? It's exactly how, as you said. There's not much to differentiate. You know,
Yeah, I mean, there's a thing where like if you had a Sega Saturn and you had a PlayStation, like you were playing different games.
different games.
You were, I mean, there's crossover a little bit, but it wasn't so much that you were, you could get by without owning both of the systems.
Yeah,
Whereas now, like if you didn't care about the exclusives on the Xbox or the exclusives on the PS3, you would be fine because you'd be getting like almost all the games that come out.
that's true. It is true. I mean, shit. Especially on the PS3. I mean, if you only had a PS3, you'd miss out on what? You'd miss out on Halo, Forza, Gears,
Years, yeah.
and
I mean, there's a lot of smaller exclusives like one-off games, but
yeah,
nothing like. I mean, it's the same kind of thing. Like, if I only had to have one system at the moment, I'd probably go with the PS3 just because Yakuza. But besides that, I mean, I wouldn't even really care.
yeah. No, I definitely see what you're saying, man. It's like, what's the point of having, really, like, what's the point of having two systems really that do the same exact thing? You know?
Yeah, that's the kind of thing where it just, it's the kind of thing where if you're into gaming now and you don't think about the past, it seems like, oh yeah, I like the Xbox, I like the PS3, I'm a PS3 fanboy or whatever. It's the kind of thing where it's almost meaningless to be that way because it's just like company loyalty at that point. It doesn't really make that much sense because the amount of exclusives are so small.
Yeah,
It actually did make sense if you were like, I have a Genesis.
yeah. You're damn right it did.
If you were like, I have a Super Nintendo, well, I have a Genesis. It's like, well, that actually means something.
Exactly. If you had a Genesis, you're playing Streets of Rage, Toe Jam and Earl, Decap Attack. If you had a Super Nintendo, you're playing, you know, Pilot Wings, Zelda, Metroid. Total difference in libraries. You know what I mean? Just all depends on which games you prefer. You know?
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing like, um, the problem with the Wii in this generation was that the Wii actually could have done that, and it essentially it did, except the majority of the games were not good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because the Wii was kind of its own. They had to do something to take advantage of that controller. So it wasn't necessarily, okay, we're going to put this game on the 360 or the PS3. You had to do something different for that controller. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I have a bunch of Wii games, but there's nothing on the Wii that I mean, I'm not gonna say nothing because there's a lot of good games on the Wii. It's just that comparatively, compared to like the overall percentage of good games in the overall library, the Wii is like at a really small percentage of good games compared to the overall percentage of games.
Yeah, and that's what I don't understand when people have said, like, oh, this generation, who cares what Microsoft and Sony, the Wii's already won. Like, what did the Wii win?
Sales only. That's the
Yeah, like, okay, the Wii won. If it wasn't for the PS3 and 360, half of these killer franchises that I've loved from this generation, I wouldn't have played. Because none of them are on the Wii, man. Like, that is, in my opinion, the Wii didn't win shit, dude. Like, it might have sold more units, yeah, like you said, but in terms of games and me being a gamer and wanting to play good games, I don't think the Wii won anything. I think if anything, it further isolated Nintendo from being like relevant. You know what I mean? Like, in terms of what gamers are playing these days. I mean, sure, everybody, and I'm not bashing Nintendo or the Wii. Everybody loves Mario, everybody loves Metroid, everybody loves Kirby, and you're still going to get those games in the Wii U. But that system didn't. I don't know, them saying like the Wii U is gonna, it's a system for hardcore gamers. You know, you show me a hardcore gamer that's into Call of Duty that's gonna want to pick up Call of Duty for their system, or pick up Batman, or pick up the next Saints Row, or the next, whatever the case may be. You know what I mean? It's just, I don't know. It's
Yeah, it's just that Nintendo doesn't have that image.
no, they don't.
And I'm just thinking about it like, um, right now the Wii U is the most powerful system we have. But at the same time, when you said that, when you said like, do you want to pick up Call of Duty on the Wii U? And I think like I don't want to pick up Call of Duty at all, but if I were going to, wouldn't pick it up on the Wii U.
Exactly. Exactly. And when this next generation of consoles hits, and these updated graphic engines and physics, come out, it's going to put the Wii U in a really weird spot, man, because it's going to be severely outdated.
It's going to be in the Dreamcast era.
Yeah, and like, what are they going to do? Like, the next hottest game that's coming out that everybody's looking forward to, are they going to make two Supreme versions on the next Xbox and the next PS, and then make like a downgraded last gen version for the Wii U with some touch controls? Like, really? I don't know. They're in a weird spot, man.
Well, I mean, Nintendo will be fine. I'm not worried about Nintendo. I think they'll sell a lot, and they'll make good games on it, and I'll buy one eventually. But it's the kind of thing where, it's not. I think Nintendo has a good idea in the sense that they're not trying to compete with the other guys.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I think the idea behind it is solid. It's just that, it's like I'm saying. Technically, the Wii should have the one of the best libraries. It's just it doesn't because it didn't attract developers in the way it should have.
No, and it's not going to get these big game sales, where you're getting 5-6 million copies of Game X or Game Y sold on its platform. It's just not going to, of course, the Nintendo games are always going to sell, but they're not going to get the big hitters, man. I don't know. I don't want to ramble. I don't want to make it seem like I'm bashing Nintendo or the Wii U. Of course, it'll do fine. Is it doing like super hot right now? Not really, but there's really
Yeah,
no.
yeah. I mean, it's selling about as much as the Vita is selling.
Yeah. So
But it's the kind of thing where like it'll be good. I mean, eventually I'll get one, and there'll be games on it I play, and I'll have fun with it. So I'm not really worried. I just think it's kind of a missed opportunity.
yeah, yeah. All I know is that this February 20th, I think this whole next generation thing is really going to start heating up. It's really gonna. It's an exciting time, man. This is going to be a really exciting E3. you know, and this holiday season is going to be a really exciting time with new consoles, man. I'm really excited, for the new consoles. It's going to be good, and I hope this announcement on the 20th is. I just hope they're bringing their A game, man, because it's got a lot of people hyped up, and I don't think Sony's in the position where they can disappoint anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
So, with that being said, good sir, you want to call an end to this episode?
All right. This will be the end. So, see you next time.
See you next time.